Hello, I'm Caitlin. I'm the artistic director of TheaterWorks, and I'm delighted to talk today with a UCCS student and artist who is involved in our production of Elections at Altitude. Arantxa, do you want to introduce yourself and speak a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, hi, I'm Arantxa Chavez. I'm a senior at UCCS. I'm studying theater. Um, and I participated in the project as an actress. And yeah.
I love it. So, Elections at Altitude was our companion piece to Anna Deavere Smith's House Arrest. So, it was entirely based on interviews that UCCS students did with members of the Pikes Peak region about their views about the presidency and leadership. And then those interviews were turned into monologues with also undergraduate actors involved. So, my first question about the process for Arantxa is, how did working on this project, Elections at Altitude, shape how you now think about integrity and elections?
Well, integrity as an elections. I mean, I have many thoughts about this because it's very broad,
Mm-hmm.
especially
Absolutely.
the term integrity, which is, in my opinion, and I could be wrong, it just means to carry yourself with truthness and
Mm-hmm.
respect for others. And I don't know if I would describe all elections that way. I wouldn't. We all know that there are things that are done and there are powers that push us or move us. Um, and so politicians as well. It's out a little bit out of our control and it doesn't really serve us and the people. This here and in many countries, I mean, in the country that I come from, that's the struggle that we live through, is that we know deep down that our candidates are not necessarily put out there for us. That being said, how has this project shaped my view of it? I don't think it has changed much. It just goes to show that we have different opinions on who is out there and who will be out there. And those feelings are evoked on people. I mean, two of the people that I got to perform as had specific feelings about who's the president right now. And the moment they got elected 4 years ago. And I'm not gonna say those feelings were negative. They were negative in many cases, but I'm losing my train of thought real hard. Well, I guess what I'm trying to say is that they didn't feel safe then, and they don't feel safe now, but they have a drive compared to 4 years ago, because 4 years ago already passed. And now we're here, and I feel like the elections comes with an integrity of the person, because if we cannot trust the people who are going to be out there, who's going to trust our opinions of what is going to happen? So yeah, I completely lost my train of thought, but I hope that any of this is making any sense.
It is. I'd like to, because there's a question that I was going to ask later, but since you brought up the question of trust, to ask it now. What do you think our elected leaders can do to build or maintain the trust of the electorate, of the people who brought them to office?
So I cannot speak for everyone, but at least for myself, there's always going to be a degree of I don't trust you. Because I mean, it is impossible for them to be telling us 100% the truth, because it's often the case that after someone gets elected, people are still shocked that some of the promises they made during the campaign did not come true. To this day, I don't get shocked anymore. I just expect it. I just expect that I'm going for half of what you're promising. And hopefully half that promise doesn't feel like an attack to me and gives me some sort of safety. So how do you keep that little bit of trust that it is alive and then potentially make it bigger? I think answer our questions. The people are voicing them very loud. This is my concern. This is what I want to know. And honestly, I was watching the debate online, And I'm gonna be honest, I didn't watch the whole thing, but the first one I did watch a little bit of it, and I kind of was like, we are in trouble. And I don't even know if I'm gonna stay in this country, but I'm like, at least the people here and the people I care about here, they're in trouble, because that did not put any trust in them. There was a lot of avoiding questions, and it makes you wonder, how much of the truth are you scared of us listening to? Um, is it so bad that you really can just straight up lie to our faces, if that makes any sense? It is so vile that at least I'll just avoid the question instead of telling you a lie, because I just can't afford to. So even if the answer is not going to be one that we like, I think I would trust more a person that just puts out there what they believe in. And that's what a lot of people have said about the president right now. I like him because he's very blunt. And that's an opinion, and I think it's a valid one. But lately, I haven't seen much of that from any party. So I and it goes back to integrity. I think I can't vote, but if I were to vote, I would like to know who I'm voting for, with all the bad and all the good. And a lot of us, our job lies on us to be looking and like discerning what the good resources are and what is the truth. And it shouldn't be so much put on us. That's what I'm trying to get at.
And I'm hearing in that point about like sifting out the truth and sifting out that the sort of research or the digging that's sort of incumbent on folks now, which connects to the next question that I had before we circle back to this particular part of the process, which is about how are you thinking about how to hold elected officials, either here in this country where you, as you've expressed, you don't have a vote because your home country is elsewhere, or how are you thinking about this question of accountability in your home country as well? How are you thinking that you are empowered now to hold elected officials accountable to their electorate?
I think the platforms where we can speak out have been multiplied in the last 5 years. I mean, the voting turnout just expresses that. The amount of people who are voting in this election are, if I'm not wrong, overpassing many elections before. And it is all due, honestly, to social media and the power that it carries to move younger audiences. And it also carries dangers. We're not going to get into it, but in itself, it creates a lot of positives, especially by providing platforms for people to be like, from my personal opinion, this is what I think. This is what scares me. This was what I'm celebrating, et cetera, et cetera. So for me, that's a way of keeping people accountable, because now more than ever, opinions are known. Communities are built and based off those opinions. So it's out in the open. It's almost like it's harder to escape certain things. And we're left, this contradicts my last point, but we're left a little bit less in the dark as we used to before. They still try to put curtains in front of us, but it is easier for us to all behind the little curtain be like, oh my God, I think there's a curtain in front of us. So we're all like, oh yeah, there is. Okay, let's push it. So there's a space now that I don't think it was before. I mean, I was really young before, but I still remember it.
So yeah, I love this idea that there are like both more tools for gathering information and also more tools for obfuscation in this time, and like having to balance those against each other. But like more curtains, but also more ways to pull back the curtain. Exactly. And how much responsibility that places on us. Yeah. So this question is going to be, the last question is going to be more specific to the process of elections at altitude, because you were depicting 3 different people who are real people who exist in real life, who are interviewed by your peers. So I'm interested specifically on the ethics of representation around that. And how do you think about after having gone through that experience, how do you think about the ethics of representing a real person and presenting their views verbatim through their performance, and especially how you would show respect, even when it might be someone whose views you don't agree with as an individual?
So I think the ethics part of this starts at the beginning of the project, which I wasn't part of. I was just an actor. But I was hoping that the people that I was playing, that they were aware that this is the way their voices were going to be used. Um, and I think that's the case. I could be wrong and correct me if I am, but I
You're
think
correct. Folks knew that
yeah.
it would be edited into monologues and shared out in this way, but you're absolutely right that that the difference between sort of informed consent and the harvesting of stories is really important. So there are definitely ethics in the interview process.
So definitely
Absolutely.
after that, then moving into where they were turned into monologues, there is an ethics part that comes into respecting what was said, and I think it's a, I mean, especially in documentary theater, I think that's usually done with a lot of respect, because I mean, reading through those monologues, they are taken. I'm sorry for the cars, they're very loud. Those words are taken verbatim. I mean, I could read them and I'm like, a real person said this, and all their little mannerisms are there, and every single word, every single pause of thought is in there. So I think that's where the respect got carried. And I think it's important to maintain that when you're doing work like this. And then when it comes to me, definitely know who you are representing. At least know their names. Like that's just the basics. Just at least have a little care for who they are as a human being. Because usually as actors, we get lines on a paper, and then you're like, give it life. And this one is like, oh my god, it was already once alive, and now I have to respect that. So that's where I'm coming from. I think also is even same as anthropologists, and I'm not an anthropologist, but it's almost like you have to be very conscious of your biases. Because if I don't agree with certain things that were said, I cannot let that shine through, because it interrupts the integrity of the piece. And you get to then luxuriate on the things that you do agree with, and then the difference will be made. But there's no need to slander that of that you don't agree with. So I think that's the important part. It's how do you balance those, how you become conscious of your biases and try to work through those, because obviously it's very hard to get rid of them. And I don't think anybody's expecting you to completely strip yourself out and empty to put on this new persona. But it is, you're putting it on, and so and people see your eyes through it. It's almost, imagine you're putting you like a mask and your eyes are through it. So you have to approach the performance in a way that people trust what you're saying. Because I'm also saying things that I agree with. If I turn this into a joke, or if I turn this into like, I don't know if I trust that, I'm gonna say like, then the whole piece loses its credibility, loses its integrity, and then I don't know what we're saying. So
so that lifting up each of the viewpoints, those that we agree with and those that we don't, is part of maintaining the integrity and the message of the whole piece, and letting the audience receive those viewpoints unadulterated and make the decisions for themselves.
Yeah, it's about putting truth out there. And like I said, the precedents, and how do you trust electives? I think that's the way. It's like they put your truth out there and let me decide. Yeah. And in their case, it's easier because they're playing themselves, hopefully. Hopefully they're not puppets or machines. But yeah.
That is lovely. Thank you so much for your time on elections at altitude and your beautiful work and your time talking to me today. I really appreciated it, Arantxa.
Thank you.
Thank you.